Ethan King had everything money could buy: a Manhattan penthouse, a company worth hundreds of millions, and a reputation for being brilliant but heartless. To his employees, he was the CEO who spoke in numbers, not feelings. To his late father, he was a man of profit but no purpose. When his father passed away, Ethan expected a simple inheritance. Instead, the will delivered a shock that shattered his world. To claim his fortune, Ethan had to get married within 30 days. If he failed, every penny would be donated to a foundation for the homeless. At first, Ethan thought it was a cruel joke. Marriage? He barely believed in love, but a letter from his father hit him hard. It said, "I built an empire and died surrounded by strangers. Don't make the same mistake." For the first time in years, Ethan felt something break inside him. Was it anger, guilt, or loneliness? Maybe all three. That night, the city lights outside his window seemed emptier than ever. Days turned into a frantic search for a solution. Hiring someone, too risky. Finding a real partner in 30 days, impossible. But fate has a funny way of stepping in when you least expect it. One cold, rainy evening, Ethan was driving home when he saw a woman at a bus stop. She was holding a child's book under a broken umbrella, her posture proud and quiet, refusing to beg. People rushed past without a second glance, but something about her made him stop. Her name was Clara. She was a former journalist whose career had been destroyed by a powerful man she exposed for corruption. She had lost her home, her job, and her faith in the world's fairness. But she hadn't lost her dignity or her kindness. Ethan offered her a coffee. She hesitated, but something in his voice convinced her. They sat in a small cafe, and she spoke with a quiet intelligence and strength that captivated him. She didn't ask who he was or what he wanted. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt seen, not as a CEO, but simply as a man. He couldn't stop thinking about her. The next day he found her again, reading a tattered copy of Pride and Prejudice. He laid out his absurd situation, the will, the deadline, the marriage. She listened, her green eyes calm but skeptical. Finally she asked, "Why me?" Ethan replied quietly, "Because you have nothing to gain by lying to me." Clara studied him for a long moment. "I'll do it," she said, "but under 2 conditions. I keep my independence, and you help a sick friend of mine from the shelter." Ethan agreed without hesitation. 3 days later, they stood before a city clerk. No guests, no vows, just 2 strangers signing a contract. As they stepped outside, the first snowflakes of winter began to fall. Clara smiled faintly. "Seems like the universe approves," she said. Ethan almost smiled back. He gave her a room in his penthouse overlooking Central Park. She arrived with only a small suitcase and a few old books. The sheer luxury felt unreal to her, but her presence started to warm the cold, empty apartment. She'd laugh at the complicated coffee machine, fill the kitchen with the smell of cinnamon, and leave little notes on the counter. Ethan tried to keep his distance. This was a business deal, nothing more. But Clara's perspective on the world, her hope, even after losing everything, began to chip away at his defenses. At business dinners, her charm was disarming. During one gala, when asked how they met, she smiled and said, "In a bookstore. We both reached for the same copy of Pride and Prejudice." He refused to let go. The room erupted in laughter, and for the first time anyone could remember, Ethan blushed. But just as things were changing, Ethan's world began to crumble. A cyber attack hit his company, leaking private data and sending investors into a panic. The media descended like sharks. To make matters worse, his ruthless deputy Marcus Hale began plotting to oust him, whispering to the board that Ethan was unfit to lead. One night, as Ethan sat in his office, buried in chaos, Clara walked in with a laptop. "I think I found something," she said. Her journalistic instincts had kicked in. She had noticed suspicious files on Marcus's computer, and traced the cyber attack directly to him. He had orchestrated the entire crisis to seize control of the company. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "You did all this tonight?" Clara just shrugged. "You underestimate people who've lived with nothing. We learn to see what others ignore." Together they exposed Marcus. The company was saved, and Ethan's name was cleared. But instead of celebrating, Ethan found Clara by the door with her suitcase packed. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with sadness. "The deal's done, Ethan. You don't need me anymore." He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "Clara, that deal stopped meaning anything the moment you walked into my life." Tears welled up in her eyes. "You don't love me. You love the way I made you feel human again." She turned to leave, but he caught her hand. "Maybe that's where love starts," he said quietly. "When someone reminds you who you are." She didn't answer, but she looked at him, and for the first time she saw the man behind the walls. A month later, Ethan honored the spirit of his father's will. He donated $1 million to fund a new housing initiative for homeless women, putting the entire project under Clara's name. She only found out when a local paper ran the headline, "Millionaire CEO funds shelter inspired by mysterious wife." When she went to thank him, he was waiting at the door with 2 cups of coffee. "Still reading Austen?" he asked softly. "Always," she replied. And then he smiled, a real, genuine smile, the kind a man gives when he finally understands what his father meant all along. Money could build empires, but only love could rebuild a soul. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that reminds us what truly matters. We'll see you in the next video.